Hello everybody, welcome back to It's Current Year. Today we have our first fan submission in Warhammer 3. It is Red Legion, friend of the channel, been on a bit of a hiatus for I think about a year and a half now, but formerly a very strong player in the Warhammer 2 competitive meta and tournament scene. So he's back on deck. Hopefully we'll see a bit more from Red in the coming weeks and months. He's playing Nurgle today up against Tzeentch, and very thematic matchup this because Nurgle and Tzeentch absolutely hate one another. But this is a real pain of a matchup for Nurgle. Probably their hardest matchup. Ogre's obviously also very tough as well, but this is a matchup that really just feels like a losing cause from go to woe. So we'll see how Red can do today. He's coming in with a Great Unclean One leading the force here. Now, I believe the item selection and spell selection thing here is a little bug, so we might wait until we're into the replay to actually see it, because we won't be able to. It'll show all the spells here from the lore of Nurgle. It doesn't cut them on the tooltip here, but Nurgle's the Nurgle force here is pretty mobile out of the gate. 2 units of Rotflies, 2 units of Forsaken, 2 units of Nurglings. In the reserve force, we do have a Soul Grinder, a Cultist of Nurgle, 2 more Rotflies, 3 more units of Forsaken, a Beast of Nurgle, a single unit of Plague Bearers, a couple of Furies, and some more Nurglings just for that cheap reinforcement. So for Tzeentch, likewise, we'll have to wait till we get into the battle to see what Kairos has taken, but I have a feeling I know which spells he'll have. Doom Knights, Forsaken of Tzeentch, which are again very strong. You pretty much can't go wrong with any of the Tzeentch infantry. I mean, Horror Spam is very common and very good at killing basically everything on the Nurgle roster, but Tzeentch Forsaken do outclass Nurgle Forsaken just through their barrier mechanics, and they're also very good because they do have magical attacks. So things just like Nurglings, Melt, Plague Bearers, if you are brave enough to bring any amount of Plague Bearers, will just get cut down because their physical resistance obviously means nothing. So yeah, Doom Knights, Forsaken, a couple of units of Furies, 3 units of Horrors, and in the reserve force we have some Doom Knights up on their Discs of Tzeentch. Very cool unit, really like playing with these guys. 2 more units of Doom Knights, 4 units of Forsaken for a full complement there, a couple of Screamers. So this is a very mobile sort of Air Force build here, a couple of units of Furies in the forward force, and then some Flyers in behind, and then a single unit of Pink Horrors and 1 more unit of Blue Horrors for a full complement of, 4 Blue Horrors here. So Broken Leg Gully is the map, and I think this, along with Silver Spire, are probably the 2 best maps for Nurgle. Spawn points are nice and spread out across the width of the battlefield, and the capture points aren't too far apart. You can obviously get to this one, which is the away teams or your opponent's sort of home capture quite well with Nurglings, as they are a Vanguard deployment unit. But we'll see how Red goes. So we'll get in once the game loads and have a quick look at the abilities on our Lords. So Cougarth, well, that's not Cougarth, it's just a regular Exalted Great Unclean One. So it looks like he has come in with obviously Blight Swarm, but Rancid Visitations as well as Fleshy Abundance. So no Blight Boil, which is a spell I actually like. Does quite a decent amount of damage, does have a bit of a slow wind up. But he's also got some other passive abilities, Cloud of Flies, as well as the Fetid Stench for some leadership debuffing, which may not seem all that impactful against the Mono God Chaos factions, but it does lower leadership to help the demons start to destabilize, and you can route obviously Forsaken and things like that. So over here, Kairos up in the air. Let's see what he has. As I said, I have a feeling I know what he'll have. Looks like he has come in with the Oracle of Eternity for his debuff, Blue Fire of Tzeentch, Tzeentch's Firestorm, and no Pendulum. Okay, so I was definitely still expecting Pendulum because it is just a bit of a go-to, but Tzeentch's Firestorm may be a fun, definitely a fun spell. Probably one of the best uses for that spell as well against Nurgle, because they can't necessarily dodge it, and they do tend to like to sort of blob up around their objective. So Red is making a bit of a play with his Forsaken for the top objective here. We have some Blue Horrors coming forward, as well as the Chaos Furies. Now the Chaos Furies and even just the Forsaken on the ground are really good at abusing the barrier mechanic just by cycle charging. Obviously Forsaken with their 46 speed are actually slightly faster than Nurgle Forsaken with only 42 speed. So there is some ways you can, even with the ground troops, you can really abuse that barrier mechanic, which I think overall is probably one of the better faction mechanics. So Warp Flame is going down thanks to the Blue Fire coming in to snipe the Great Unclean One. He'll heal through a lot of this. It'll take a lot of Warp Flames to try and kill them. And we'll see now the Chaos Furies getting double teamed and probably killed quite quickly here by the Rotflies. The Tzeentch Furies, unlike Slaanesh Furies, don't have the best armor piercing, and just like the Khorne Furies, don't have just the best raw damage output. So they probably will die if they stay in this fight. They are going to have their speed debuffed, but they are still slightly faster than the Rotflies, so they might want to think about pulling out there. So Blue Horrors are going to tee off into these Forsaken. Some Nurglings coming up here, being set upon by the Chaos Knights. They're going to get killed very quickly here. And this is what I mean here. The Kairos actually coming down to do some fight, as we do get that awful glare effect from the snow. We will pull out a little bit. Tzeentch obviously moving forward to cap the center objective here. But again, some Rotflies are going to jump down. And these are just Blue Horrors, so they are pretty pathetic in combat. Not sure if they have guard mode on and they will keep shooting, but these Rotflies might take a little while, but they will be able to wear down. And as we see here, as I said, Nurgle Forsaken just getting kind of outclassed by the Tzeentch Forsaken. Over this side we have another unit of Nurglings come in, and a nice rear charge from the Tzeentch player is probably going to polish off those Nurgle Forsaken. So one unit of Furies has regained their shields, but the Screamers coming in are a good counterplay to the Rotflies, anti-large and armor piercing. Very squishy, so it's nice to have a Fury screen alongside them, but they are potentially a very large damage dealer. And we see here, this is another reason why this is such a hard matchup for Nurgle. The barrier mechanic is, as I said, just generally a very strong mechanic, but Nurgle don't excel at burst damage. Even on the charge, most of their units, I mean, Rotflies with 16 charge bonus, that's pretty pathetic. Obviously decent weapon strength, but dealing burst damage to actually get through the shields is something that Nurgle isn't good at. Forsaken will do it a little bit better, obviously 40 charge bonus and decent weapon strength, but it's, even the mobile things like Frogs, Rotflies, the burst damage just isn't there, and it levels the fight even in what you'd expect to be fairly favourable engagement. So at this stage it does look like Red is capturing this point up here. There's more infantry present up here, and big Lord of Disease here, the big Chungus with his bell. He's ringing that bell for Nurgle. He's just going to consolidate the position up here alongside the Forsaken. Down here, Tzeentch has taken the center capture point, and with some Blue Horrors backing them up here, might actually be able to see off these Rotflies, and the Chaos Knights have made their way all the way down the hill, but pulling back quite smartly now with another couple of units. Oh no, here are the Rotflies, and some Furies, I believe, have come into the fight. No. Rotflies, and yes, there are a unit of Nurgle Furies here. So the Chaos Knights have taken a bit of a hit, but they have dealt some decent damage. Probably wants to pull them out and get the either desummon them now and get a bit of a refund, or at least get the barrier mechanic back. So this Nurgle Forsaken's done power of work here. They've actually got a decent amount of kills. Probably killed some Blue Horrors, I think, in that early engagement, but they are going to be overwhelmed by this second unit of reinforcing for Tzeentch Forsaken, and the Pink Horrors will ensure that this Exalted Great Unclean One really wants to get out of dodge here, needs to outrun the fiery magic shots of the Pink Horrors, because they do have decent range and good potential to burst him down. Top cap point here, closest to Nurgle, is still uncapped. No real problems with that at the moment. I mean, the Tzeentch player is double capped and getting a little bit of a lead, but Nurgle probably doesn't mind that. Probably Nurgle wants to look to maybe snowball here, abuse the comeback mechanic as long as they can. They are losing slightly on compensation, but the Rotflies are flying around, being pretty annoying, doing pretty good work. I don't mind them as a unit. They are decent for their role in the Nurgle roster, and likewise when you pair them up with Furies that are very cost effective just generally across all the monogod factions, they can actually deal some damage over time. Obviously have a little bit of armor piercing, decent weapon strength, and with their poison attacks can grind reasonably well. So as we said here, Pink Horror is just teeing off on the Great Unclean One, and he has not had a good time of it. 40 kills, but I'd be surprised to see a ton of damage from his Mortis Engine effect. 1,000, not too bad, but he probably wants to sit back, maybe get some heals. Not sure if we've used the army ability yet, or if we've managed to charge that up. But Tzeentch wants to push down from this forward position here. It's going to be hard for Nurgle to press on this with Pink Horrors. Pink Horrors probably sit in front of the ramp here, get the Forsaken down. You could probably leave this beaten up unit of Forsaken just on the cap point, just to buy you some time, but they are looking very beaten up, so you could possibly get the refund here. And with the blue fire and the globes coming down from up on high, the Great Unclean One has just been caught between a rock and a hard place this whole entire game. But Red is starting to cap this center point, looking to claim his first points on victory tickets. But the Tzeentch player needs to be a little bit more proactive here. He could actually take this and really snowball the game quite significantly. Likewise, some Screamers here just sitting back. Probably want to get involved and try and pin in, either try and finish off the Great Unclean One with their anti-large or do some damage to the Beasts of Nurgle. There are another unit of Screamers down here who are doing some pretty nice damage, as we do get the slowing bug coming down here. And the Blue Horrors are just turning to fight. Probably not a bad idea because these Forsaken have been routed off. I think these guys must be in guard mode, so they are going to send their little plasma grenades into the blob here. And at the moment, things are looking pretty tough for the Nurgle forces, and really with not a lot of presence on this high ground. A full health unit of Forsaken, full health unit of Pink Horrors with about half their ammo left. It's looking tough for Nurgle, so I think Nurgle probably wants to maybe go and try and take the high ground over here, spawn in some more Forsaken. Red, as we see, does have a bit of a bank here. Could spawn in a couple of units of Forsaken, maybe a couple of units of maybe a unit of Nurglings just to stay on the point here and keep it capped. But probably just needs to concede some ground here, take some points on the top capture point here, so we're not getting too far behind and giving ourselves as much time to try and catch up as possible. But the Kairos man is doing a number on this Lord of Change. 13 kills, but we'll have a look at his damage value in a moment here. 2,000 damage. He's just been spamming that blue fire, and we will see a heal come down, which is nice for this Great Unclean One because obviously the change in healing mechanics to heals per second being percentage based for a unit like a Great Unclean One that has so much HP is a nice change. Certainly it helps the Nurgle faction out overall in a very big way. Likewise, they have obviously access to some other AoE heals with their army abilities, and obviously Locus of Fecundity, which is on the Herald, but obviously definitely the Herald is, I think, quite a strong pick generally. So Soul Grind has been warped in. Still got plenty of bank here, and these Chaos Knights are coming up. They could potentially probably still finish off these Nurglings. Nurglings not exactly with the highest damage output, but good play here from the Tzeentch player, just coming forward of the capture point. If the Nurglings are fighting on top of the capture point, they can probably actually cap this from underneath the Chaos Knights before they die. And as we see, these Chaos Knights are very weak and may actually just be able to be finished off by the Nurglings. So buying as much time as possible with the tattered unit coming forward of the point. Forsaken, or rather Furies coming in now to try and set down upon the Pink Horrors of Tzeentch. Good use of their magical attacks to bypass their physical resistance. They've obviously burst down the shields quite well, so they're going to deal some nice work. Obviously with 44 weapon strength, they are a reasonably high damage output unit in the right situation like this. Obviously Pink Horrors not a lot of armor, so the lack of AP isn't really considerable, but those Pink Horrors still have probably done their job. They did send a lot of shots into Chaos. Yeah, a lot of shots into that Great Unclean One. So they've got their cost back. They'll go back to the war, probably get re-summoned in soon. And this unit of Forsaken just doing guard duty up the top. Not a lot of a presence here from the Nurgle forces. And this is starting to get to the point now where Red's going to need to double cap sooner rather than later. 3,000 points and only on one victory point is starting to get to the point where you still got some time up your sleeve, but it is sort of danger zone. And given that the Nurgle faction generally is going to be less mobile than Tzeentch, time is, you're kind of on the clock. So Plague Bearers are an interesting choice here. Not sure if there were no Forsaken, or there are another unit of Forsaken coming up this side. So if we could maybe detach a unit of these Furies to try and get a rear charge and use the shields of the Forsaken here before the Nurgle Forsaken engage, that would probably be a really good use of what's left of one of these units of Chaos Furies. They will probably turn around the Tzeentch Forsaken and kill the Furies quite quickly, but we want these Nurgle Forsaken up here getting their charge bonus against the actual HP of the Forsaken, not just the barriers. So it looks like Red has indeed captured the top point. These brave little Nurglings have managed to see off the Chaos Knights, and there's another fresh unit of Chaos Knights coming their way, so jokes on them, poor little Nurglings. But there are some Rotflies here, might be able to get a rear charge, and again, just stick in the fight there and allow the Nurglings to last for as long as possible. Slow bug once again afflicting me here. And the Plague Bearer is actually with a lack of ranged firepower here in the form of the Horrors. probably not the worst time to get them out. They will die still will die very badly to Forsaken. Obviously, as we mentioned before, magic attacks on Forsaken really just make them a good answer to basically any of the Nurgle infantry. So one-on-one fight here. Again, there's each player doing well to actually bring his Forsaken off the capture point and fight off the capture point with no other pressure here from the Nurgle. I like that. He's done that a couple of times in this game. Screamers coming down. Very squishy once their barrier goes, and we will see the Rotflies getting a nice rear charge. Normally that would be a good engagement for the Screamers, but just surrounded as they are here, probably being mortised down as well by the Exalted Great Unclean One, who's really done a power of healing in this game and really has taken some punishment. And we're also seeing a Cultist out, so nice use of his reinforcement pool here. Red will definitely have the option to summon in some Plague Bearers. Unless that unit of Plague Bearers that came out before, I think this may be the reinforcement pool, and I'm pretty sure this wasn't a, pretty sure this isn't a summon. But the Knights up here, cavalry obviously does take a while to capture points. So a unit of Nurglings in the forward deployment. This is what's really actually great about Nurglings. I mean, they're not slow. I think personally the sort of the catch cry that Nurgle is an immobile faction is not untrue, but it's probably overstated to a degree. I just think they're a fairly moderately mobile faction, obviously compared to Slaanesh and even Khorne, who are quite mobile. I think they are slower overall. But really, unless we're talking about the Kugarth or Plague Bearers, everything else in your army is just moderately fast. I mean, regular Great Unclean One, or this Great Unclean One has actually died, but yeah, 23 speed on Plague Bearers and Kugarth obviously does slow you down considerably. But generally, I would consider Plague Bearers not a great unit in a lot of cases. Probably not going to be brought as often as Forsaken are, just generally. So I think Nurgle are more mobile than people give them credit for. Definitely not a mobile faction, but the Rotflies and the Furies here, even with the considerable shields just lasting here on the Chaos Knights, are probably going to win the day eventually. Although the Screamers here coming in potentially for a bit of an alpha strike on the rear will be a nice engagement on the Rotflies. Probably don't want to hang around if there's too many Furies left, however. So if these Furies go down, Nurgling's just getting bullied by Chaos Knights. You hate to see it, but center point at the moment looking very, very pretty happy here for Red. Soul Grinder definitely isn't going to care quite as much about the Blue Flame, and Blue Flame on infantry units is not really what you want to be using that on. So this center point here looking relatively consolidated at the moment. Soul Grinder should probably be shooting at these Forsaken as they march their way in instead of the friendly fire over here, but nice shot there actually. Probably, I mean, all your friendly firing really here is Nurgling, so you know, not a big risk. But once again, we see the Warp Flame coming down, and this is probably going to actually dissolve these Plague Bearers off the cap point. So very smartly just pulling back with the Soul Grinder, taking this high position, probably going to bombard the Tzeentch Forsaken here from off the position, and we see a new unit of Forsaken has been called in here, but another unit of Forsaken. Red's doing his best to try and contest this top point, and he has managed to even up the victory tickets quite considerably. Needs to probably double cap within the next definitely within the next 30 seconds if he's any chance to win this, but he's definitely within striking distance, even if Tzeentch does maintain one cap point here. So this point over here obviously looking very, very, very healthy for him. Unlikely that the Tzeentch player is going to be able to get too much. Safer perhaps a unit of Forsaken coming up the hill here to try and cap this. Obviously the Flyers have no cap weight. Horrors aren't going to make it to this point in time. But if Tzeentch can't reclaim the middle point and loses this top point up here, they're looking a little bit thin on the ground at the moment. Even though Warp Flame, yeah, can do some decent damage to Soul Grinders, not to the extent that it will a Great Unclean One. Screamer is definitely a good follow-up to the Soul Grinder. He's going to push it off the point and allow the Tzeentch infantry to basically advance here without the threat of being shelled down. Rotfly's being rerouted, looks like, to this fight. Again, if they can get a rear charge and the Soul Grinder can do his best to actually burst down the shields here, which it seems to be doing, same with the Furies of these Screamers, they may be able to polish them off. But this is going to go pretty close to the wire. Looks like this cap point probably is going to be taken by Tzeentch, and that will make it tough. But as long as Red can stay double capped over here, this point is still in the Nurgle player's control, even though it looks mostly red, has nearly been capped. So doing quick math here, I think, This is going to go. I mean, if this stays a 2-1 for red for the until for as long as we have left in this game, this is going to go right down to the wire because obviously 2-1 points being gained at the moment for the Nurgle player. He is obviously going to hold this central point quite considerably. I think these Forsaken are going to be able to be finished off before they can cap them. They have taken a lot of damage, so they are capping a little bit slower. And if this goes down, oh, pink horror's on the way. Okay, so the Tzeentch player here needs to actually forget about the shooting here. This is actually a mistake. He needs to go and cap this point now. If he can double cap this point, so this is good. This is good game awareness here because this is all just about capping this point now. They'll last long enough to cap it without using their shooting. And like I said, this is a mistake. This is actually a mistake, stopping and shooting. He needs to cap this point. This is really, really close. I think if it maintains in this same, if the status quo maintains here, and the Tzeentch player isn't able to recap this center point, I think red is actually just going to snake this ever so slightly. Yep, this is going to be about a 10-15 pointer, but red is, holy crap, that is as close as it gets. That is as close as it gets. As I said, this is big here. I mean, there is probably the question can be asked whether they may have even had time to cap this point, but had to actually just march to the point there because the shooting here isn't. I mean, we're so close to the end game. The shooting there wasn't going to be impactful. It was just about taking that center cap point. So by the absolute narrowest of margin, 5 cap tickets, red's pulled out what I would actually think is the hardest matchup in the game at the moment. Nurgle obviously do have a couple of tough ones, but yeah, this one's tough. This one's really tough. So Kugarth, well, not Kugarth, just a regular good old great unclean one, getting some decent value, but again, you are kind of on the clock just with the sniping ability that Tzeentch has. It's why I actually like the Rotfly Herald here, just because you're not giving up a ton of value with the blue fire. You can potentially dodge the blue fire as well. Obviously, the blue fire has good projectile tracking, but the locus of fecundity as well is really good just for keeping your stuff in the game as well. It's another layer of healing just to grind it out. Obviously, Forsaken here, probably the best choice. Alongside Nurglings, you do need Nurglings just as basically cheap cap weight. But yeah, Plague Bearers are a pretty tough sell generally, but definitely in this matchup, I don't think they have any place outside of the summon on the cultist, which is just basically, you know, the cultist being as cheap as he is basically just a free unit of Plague Bearers alongside the cultist's hitting power and armor debuffing ability. So Rotflies, I do like them in this matchup, even though Tzeentch does have a good air force, because I do think you need some air presence, and provided you can actually burst things down like the Screamer barriers with stuff like Furies, where they're not making the most of their anti-large or armor piercing, Rotflies can actually do okay if they can get sort of a bit of a counter charge into Screamers. So they've done reasonably well. Again, you need all the mobility you can get as Nurgle here as well, because otherwise you're just going to get fireworked down by the horrors in most matchups. And the Nurglings here are basically never going to get massive value just because they don't really trade well into anything, but they're just mobile cap weight. But yeah, as we can see here, lots of kills on the Forsaken, doing mostly pretty well. Soul Grinder was not a bad pick. They definitely can deal with Forsaken reasonably well. Obviously, the split formation of the horrors doesn't make them that great here, but yeah, Fly's probably a big winner for red here. Forsaken very good, and even though he was on the clock, the Great Unclean One's definitely done some work. For the Tzeentch player, Kairos obviously getting it. Oh, that's so gross. Yeah, Kairos is really, really strong in a lot of matchups. Very, very hard to, almost impossible to kill as well with his snare and just the barrier mechanic being so abusable. Probably actually doesn't even need to take the snare here, to be honest. But Doom Knights were a pretty ever-present threat. Tzeentch Forsaken excellent in this matchup. Fury's doing actually better than I thought. This one probably got summoned a few times. And then horrors will always, blue horrors in particular, will just always find value in this matchup just because they're cheap. Doom Knights, not having the best game, but again, just annoying for Nurgle to deal with because you can abuse the barrier mechanic. Yeah, Forsaken, yeah, tons of value here. Probably the best. I mean, they trade well into every infantry unit here. Screamers we saw a fair bit of, did some good damage, and yeah, the horrors in reserve have done well, no surprise there, but pretty much as close as it gets. Well, literally as close as it gets for red here. So nicely played, buddy. Keep on sending in those replays, and it's good to have you back in the community in Warhammer 3. So I hope you guys enjoyed the battle. Very close one. Anyone else has any good battles, feel free to send them in. Would love to cast them and get them up on the channel. Thanks for checking it out. Till next time, take care.